What's up, you handsome devils? Today we're going to go through a couple of builds with Bolt, okay? And this is going to encompass a couple things I've built throughout the past maybe year and a half, and then we're going to move into the most current projects, and we're going to talk about the process of going from the ideation of the basic simple stuff into a bit more complex stuff. And that's the beauty of Bolt, okay? You can do that. You can do very what I call simple, narrow micro SaaSes, or you can do full-blown complex SaaSes, okay? And I'm going to show you what can be accomplished in Bolt, and then exactly where I would recommend moving into the next part of your tech stack. There's all this conversation about, should I use this, should I use that, should I use this, somebody tell me, please. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day if you stick to the fundamental process, okay? And if you want a complete and simple tech stack, you're going to get it here, okay? I'm going to tell you very simply, very straightforwardly what I use, what I recommend, and it will be the same thing going forward because all these things are getting updated. They're all keeping up with the market, whether it's Claude or OpenAI, they're all keeping up with the market. So fear not. Stop fretting about the technology. I swear to you, the amount of time that people spend on this stuff is way too much, okay? Just get building. So today we're talking about builds, we're talking about building, we're going to use Bolt, but let's get going. All right, so this is an example of something quite on the simple side, and I made it as a potential pitch for a client of mine who is a business broker. And as a part of the business brokerage business plan, you have to assess the value of companies. And so this was an essentially a calculator that's a bit more specific to the use case of that business broker, okay? And so this is taking all the common items you would see in an office like chairs and sofas and stuff like that, moving into things like, laptops and technology, stuff like that. So you can just simply click on these boxes, create a list of what is currently in that inventory so you can have the physical assets being added up, and then you can even create your own assets like, technology or databases and things like that. So this could be something that could be hosted on the website itself or as a lead magnet or used on the back end during a call while you're on the call taking notes of what the person has. You're doing this calculation and you can quickly, right there on the call, give them a potential valuation for their business, okay? And the beauty of something like this is that the mathematics and the formulas can all be programmed into this Bolt build, okay? It's basic stuff like a form when it comes to gathering the information, but when it comes to the complex data interactions, you can do this within Bolt, okay? If you use Typeform right now, if you use Google Forms right now, you know the power of forms. You know how they can set off a chain of reactions and they can collect valuable information, but if you just take it one step further and move into Bolt, you can have the formulas, you can have the variables, you can have the different calculations, and you can even export the data, share the data, etc., etc. So a great use case for things like this are going to be what's called interactive lead magnets, generally speaking. But again, these don't have to be customer facing. These can be internal tools. These can be for one of your departments. These can be for things like that. Just things that you need to constantly gather information about and make calculations on. This is a very, very valuable use case. Numero dos. This is an example of a dual-sided marketplace, right? So imagine you're a photographer or you're a model and the photographer is shooting you. You're gonna wanna get your photos and the photographer is gonna wanna deliver those photos. So this is a multi-user platform, multiple users, photographers and models with a login screen. And let's say we are the photographer in this case. And so we're gonna log in to be able to upload images so that our models or the wedding couple or whoever can get those videos and photos, and it's nice and simple and clean. You don't have to waste issues with Google Drive or the inbox or things like that. It's all in one place, and you can add your brand, you can add other services, you can add your website, and it's just a nice, simple place that essentially is the entire thing, okay? And I say that meaning like when someone has a photo session with a photographer, yes, the photo session itself is going to be a huge, huge component of the value of what it is, but getting the files, commenting the files, editing the files, structuring the files, all that stuff is huge. Because imagine if you have a great thing, people will forgive a great session. People will forgive if you have a little bit of a sloppy file management structure. But if you could have a great file management structure, then you're through the moon, okay? Because that's like having someone who's a great salesman, but they don't show up on time. You'd rather have the guy that shows up on time and sells pretty good, okay? And so that's very, very important for a business like this. And so this is something that would be extremely valuable if you built it on a custom, personalized basis. And what you can do is template this just as like a generic photographer and model section, and then you could go and offer this to photographers and say, hey, I'd like for you to build it, or like, say do you think this would be useful for you to give this stuff for your clients? And then you'd manage the upload files and all that stuff, the editing, the comments and all that stuff. And every one of them is going to be built slightly different, but you see the same basic idea, okay? The same basic idea is going to come through here. Ignore the bad demo photos here, but this is basically exactly what it would go through, okay? And just to show you that it could be something that would also be useful for the model side, let's say it's, you know, an actual, luxury model or just like a wedding couple, you would see a very similar thing where you get to see all the photos, you get to download the photos, you can add comments to the photos, you can even crop them, simple things like that. It's pretty incredible the type of stuff that these things could do. I did not imagine they could do photo editing within this stuff, and there might be some limitations. You might not get the best as Photoshop and stuff like that, but for the basics, right? For the basics, you can get this done, and it's quite amazing, okay? So this is an example of me expanding from a one-sided calculator onto a two-sided multi-user platform, okay? And you got to get familiar with these structures of these things so that if you build one out, like a calculator, you can change the fields, you can change the variables, but you know how to build that type of thing. And then now that you have this, which is a multi-user platform, you can change the variables, you can change the permissions and stuff like that, but now you know how to build a multi-user platform, okay? So that's another great example of something you can try to build. This one is on the more fun side for my poker bros out there. I like poker, but I couldn't get the hang of different odds percentages when it came to completing a hand. If you know poker, you know that you can have a flush draw, open straight, gut shot. And basically what's happening is that there's a card that needs to come out, and there's a certain percentage attached to that actually happening. And if you have one thing, then obviously you should bet, and you have another thing, you shouldn't bet. So this is actually a personal tool that you could use. And obviously, if you go into the App Store right now, there's a bunch of poker trainers, there's a bunch of things like that. But this was created out of the fact of finding the problem in the market, okay? Because I was playing poker with someone that didn't know how to play poker, and what they did is go to Google Images and type in hands in poker, like what wins, a pair or two pairs and stuff like that. And I can make that here. And then I thought, well, let me expand it just a touch, and have these more common and live odds, okay? And that's the cool thing about this stuff, because you can make it a simple, cool interface where someone could look at this and, interact with it in some way, and they could beat out just a general Google image. But, probably not going to make you a ton of money. Whereas if you start to move into the idea of like tracking or training, then you can do such a thing. Now, that's a business decision and a personal decision how far you want to take it, because some of these trackers can be quite complex. They're damn near an Excel sheet with like custom variables and formulas and all that stuff. And that's a bit more on the complex side of things, because I haven't played poker for that long, and I personally don't use that many variables to track my hands and all that stuff like that. I just wanted the basics. And the good thing is, though, I can tell you that there's a place for every one of those, because when I went to the App Store to find a poker tracker for myself, I was looking for simplicity. I was looking for the people that, basically said, that's fine and all. You can have that level of complexity. You can have that level of minutia in that, Excel sheet of a poker tracker, or you can just do some of the basics and get 80% of it down, right? The Pareto principle can be applied to such a thing here. So again, one example of sticking with that micro idea and doing something more on the B2C customer oriented side of things. A lot of fun, a lot of cool stuff. I really like the visual style. As you can see, I'm having a little bit more fun with the visual elements. My graphic design, UX design background is coming back in, and it's really kind of hitting the mark as far as the visuals go. Trying to do a drum roll. And last but not least, I'm going to show you two of the portals and apps that I have designed for clients that are living and breathing right now that we are currently working on, okay? This is a vehicle tracking software, vehicle tracking portal for a logistics company. A logistics company, a lot of times what their customer service ends up being is just, hey, where's my thing? Who's the company? Who can I contact? What's going on? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is done through emails, communications over text or phone calls, and it can get quite cumbersome. But if we make a self-service portal for the customer to take their order number and type it in here, then idea is that we can cut down on a lot of those communications, okay? So this, again, is an example of keeping things simple, because, again, we can expand from this. We can move into other areas. But right now, all this is typing in the order number, getting some information on the distance, the transportation style, et cetera, where things are, hitting these milestones right here. You can see there's some checkpoints being reached, some information on this side, some information on that side, and then where they need to go if they want more information. So a simple two-step thing is going to create immense value, because now all that the logistics company is going to have to do is say, hey, visit our app at this URL, make sure you type this in, you're going to get up to date, and then you're going to have all these trackers And for the most part, that's all people want. That's all people want. They don't want to talk to the driver. They don't want to talk to other people. They just want to understand that the thing is en route, right? If I go into an Amazon order, I really like looking at the thing that says, oh, it's making progress, it's making progress, it's making progress, right? And that should be how it is. So this is an idea that came from a very simple principle, right? Amazon plus just human nature. And it's, again, kept very simple. We can expand from here. We can have driver communication. We can have different elements and different features. We can have, a bit more transparency. We can have photos being attached to this stuff. But the foundation right now is strong and simple. And it would probably take care of, again, Pareto principle, 80% of customer inquiries. And then the last one, the coup de grace, I would say, because this one is the closest to a full-blown SaaS with multiple features, multiple users, multiple things going on, multiple screens, landing pages, sign in, sign out, subscription packages, etc., etc. This here is a platform that I made for a recruiting firm. This recruiting firm was under the impression that if they had something like this, they could have a whole new line of revenue, okay? And it's very simple at the end of the day because a recruiting firm is doing not much except for curating a list of people and sending that to a company, and then the company takes that list and then interviews them or hires those people. And why not do something like that on a subscription basis? And that's what we thought. So we put the ideas together, put our minds together, and over the past couple of weeks and months, we've been going through this, creating a place where someone could go, make a profile, curate their own list by putting in job description details and stuff like that. The recruiter would see that, send them the list, and then they would get those candidates. It's the same fundamental thing, but this way it's going to be just a lot more capable of doing it on a recurring revenue basis. So this is a landing page. Let me sign in and I'll show you inside. So I'm going to show you a couple different sides of this thing, okay? Because remember, we have multiple users, we have different features, and so on and so forth, okay? So it's starting to get a little bit more complex, okay? The idea is you hop in here and you're looking for candidates, and then you fill out this form. Let's just say it's a test candidate. We're going to have all these job details and requirements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As you know, you would fill this out because you're looking for someone of very specific stuff. Now, something cool about things like this in this form, as opposed to like a Google form, like I said earlier, is that you can create variables, you can create things that happen. So what we did is in this job description, it's going to take, let's go back a second, it's going to take this title, and let's just say we're looking for a programmer. You take that title, it's going to take these skills, it's going to say UX, it's going to say Ruby, and then it's going to say Java, and then it's going to go ahead and generate with AI, okay? So basically, once those fields are filled, it's going to do this, and you can regenerate, or you can just go in here and edit it, however you want to do it, and then you can have a nice, simple way to have a clean and easy description, okay? So that's the power of using forms backed with a bit more technology behind it and stuff like that, okay? So someone's going to go through this, fill this out, they're going to submit it, and then they're going to go into their open jobs, and they're going to be able to see all the jobs that they have, a lot of tests and stuff like that. And I want to show you this one to show you that when they have candidates come through, they'll also have an AI match analysis, so that the person will see just a basic simple score if they want, a little blurb on why that score was given to them, and then if they expand, they can see a whole lot more on their location, their education, AI summary, all of this being scraped from public information like LinkedIn and other resources. And then you have the ability also to generate a message with these people. So you go into the message generator and you can see that you can also have pre-filled information. So if I'm going to message Joshua, it'll say Joshua. If I'm going to message for the front end dev, then it can fill in that job description, etc., the company as well. So really, really cool stuff. And then if you want to have your own templates, you can add your own templates, you can save templates, and then you can even edit these with AI as well. So already lots of complexity being added on here, but the same fundamental principles apply. You would just imagine that you're building these things individually and then tying them together at the end. And then one more component on top of that is going to be this thing, which is superpowers, which is kind of like a marketplace to get unlockables. So we're going to have a gamification component with all this. And if you use the thing more, use the platform more, you'll get more credits, and then you'll be able to spend those credits on things like this. So quite a lot of complexity again, but this is where things grow, right? You start off with the simple calculators or a simple form, you apply that form into this. Then you start off with a simple like notes app or something like that, and then you apply that into this, and then a scraper, and then you apply that into this, etc., etc. So that is a nice little view at the types of things that you can build with something as simple as Bolt. And after that, like I said, when you get to a certain point of complexity, when you start to reach that authentication level and stuff like that, you can still stick to Bolt. You can integrate things like Supabase and Stripe if you want natively in here, and you can do a lot of database testing and stuff like that. But my preference is once I get to a level of adding, let's say, 3 features or 3 types of workflows, so 3 different user workflows, then that's when I'm going to move into the next software, which is Cursor. And Cursor is just a bit more of a robust system than Bolt. Bolt is web-based. Cursor you'll download into your desktop, and with Cursor you can see the code a little bit more clearly, manipulate it a little bit more clearly. It's got the same power of Claude 4.5 or whatever would be the most recent at this point, and you can even use OpenAI models and sometimes in other cases other models, but it's got the same power and engine behind it. The idea though is that when it comes to managing the code and seeing the files and getting more really intricate with the types of changes that you're doing, Cursor is the place where it can really make a lot more sense to do such a thing, okay? Especially if you understand code at least a little bit. Not necessarily to write it, but at least to read it. Then you can see a lot more of the things that are going on, and then you can catch the AI from making mistakes, or you can catch some debugging a lot sooner, so that really helps. If you'd like to know more about the rest of the process or like to see some examples go into fruition, I have some stuff on my channel, and then if you'd like to learn how to build this stuff in a bit more depth, go ahead and look at my link in the bio. It's going to be a school group where we're going to go over stuff just like this and a lot more in a bit more detail, okay? I have a full curriculum showing you how to build things and then how to sell those things as well. So not just how to make something and keep it in the files, which I see a lot of people do. I want you to actually build something and go out there and sell it for a client, or go out there and sell it to end users at the end of the day, okay? Because you can build these things for clients, like as we saw here. I can package this up and give this to a client and they're in charge of getting users to the platform, or you can release your own and try to get your own users to a platform. So if you're interested in either of those and trying to make money off of this, or just learn the skill and be better, subscribe to the channel or take a look at the school. All right, till next time.